advocator for simple speak that ordinary men would be able to understand and be able to relate to. And in a decent sense, I think he's right. The language here is not as complicated as some of the other poems that we've read, but still we can see examples of some terminology here that I believe would be not as well understood as any normal person. I'm not 100% sure if any ordinary person would be able to read this, but I get the feeling like a lot of people would absolutely be able to relate to it. After reading the poem, it becomes abundantly clear what the actual overarching theme is, and I believe it's the separation of the more modern age, modern living, where a man would need to deal with things like a work, a social life, the culture. Uh, Instead of all that, he instead retreats into nature where things are simple, things are uh, beautiful, just natural beauty. Everything seems to be working correctly. There isn't any corruption. There isn't any hate. It just seems very simple and extremely enjoyable. Sorry for that. I am trying to get over a bit of a cold, but I'll try my best. There are at least three separate quotes that I'd like to bring up here. The first one being towards the middle of the first page. These beauteous forms, through a long absence, have not been to me as is a landscape to a blind man's eye, but oft in lonely rooms amid the din of towns and cities. I have owed to them in hours of weariness, sensation sweet, felt in the blood, and felt along the heart. The one portion of that that really stood out to me was the phrase, have not been to me as is a landscape to a blind man's eye. If we look at that, it's obviously a contradictory statement. He's describing this beautiful landscape, something that I'm sure a painter could make even better, but he's comparing it to a blind man's eye, and he's almost using a double negative. I have not. It has not been to me, as is the landscape to a blind man's eyes. So I believe a landscape maybe to a blind man's eye, he can't appreciate it because he can't see it. So he's trying to explain how he's able to take all of it in. He's able to appreciate all of it. And in the second part of the this quote, he talks amid the towns and cities I have owed to them in hours of weariness, sensation sweet, felt in the blood and felt along the heart. I think he's trying to say it's this kind of feeling of looking over this landscape that's kind of getting him through the hours he's spending in the towns and cities, doing all of the things that he has to do and probably does not enjoy very well. We can move on to the second quote that I have here. It dives into a little bit more of his personal life. It says, the sounding cataract haunted me like a passion, the tall rock, the mountain, and the deep and gloomy wood. Their colors and their forms were then to me an appetite, which he's talking in this section about going through these same woods when he's younger and not really having an appreciation for the beauty of it, which I think is something we can all relate to. I fondly remember walking through the woods when I was a kid and just uh, something I did on a daily basis. But now I walk through and you can really appreciate everything that's going on. The fact that you're taking time out of your busy day to just appreciate things. It kind of gives you a sense, actually mentioned earlier in the poem, and become a living soul. That may have a different connotation to someone else, but to me, that says a soul can be peaceful, it can be at rest, and I think he's comparing himself to that kind of state of peace and just ability to let everything go and just appreciate the moment. And he says later on in that same quote, the that time is past, and all its aching joys are now no more, and all its dizzy raptures. He's saying that all of those things I used to enjoy, all those things running through the woods as a kid, that's all gone. It's been replaced by these dizzy rapture. It's I think he's trying to just say the life when he was a kid was a lot more simpler and a lot more enjoyable, and from that he didn't really take that much of a difference when he went into a scene of nature, meaning that he just wasn't able to appreciate it because he didn't have anything serious to compare it to in his real life. I want to move on to the very last portion of this poem, which is towards the end when he acknowledges that his sister is sitting right next to them, which I actually found a little bit odd, seeing as how we're, so far into the poem, and it's only towards the end that we find out he's not there by himself, even though he mentions towards the beginning that he's sitting and it's this kind of here of a wild, secluded scene. So it kind of gives you the impression that he's alone. Yet towards the end, there's a sister, and also towards the end, I think I forgot to mention this, is that he sees what looks like smoke coming up from far away among the trees. That to me just kind of says that he is sitting in the sense of nature and he's trying to enjoy it, but society, culture, the towns, the cities, that's all well within view, and it's constantly reminding him that he has a life to go back to, which I think is extremely symbolic because even when we are trying to relax, we always have in the back of our mind, what are we going to need to do once this moment is over? We think very, we tend to think in as far into the future as possible instead of just enjoying the moment, which is what Wordsworth is trying to emphasize in this poem. But getting back to the sister, we have two small quotes here, where he says, "So feed with lofty thoughts that neither evil tongues' rash judgments, nor the sneers of selfish men, nor greetings where no kindness is, nor all the dreary intercourse of daily life shall e'er prevail against us." I believe he's trying to say that he's basically asking his sister if she would be so kind as to uh, kind of take a mental note, try her best to remember this encounter with nature, this kind of peaceful feeling, because as long as she holds this memory, as long as she reverts back to it whenever something bad happens, then right here it says neither evil tongues, rash judgment. He's listing all of these terrible things, and he says none of this will bother you as long as you remember this. And we can go to the last quote, which I think really kind of brings the message home. It says, "When thy mind shall be a mansion for all lovely forms, thy